This is Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Slecker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, educated educators talking education.
Yes, it is Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. First downs, Friday night lights. Johnny Lupinacci, how are you, my friend?
It's good, Tim. It's always good to be here with you. And I love these Friday drops because, all year around,
Right.
I find an excuse to be a sports enthusiast, a sports fan, and as a coach, stay busy. But this is a special time of year, right? It's football playoff season for all these high school teams and all these listeners out there. So we got another week of football. It's getting shorter and shorter of a list, and the parity is thick in high school football as it should be as we
Yes.
get into state championships coming up pretty soon. But all the sports are really firing all cylinders this time of year, and extracurriculars are special. And I love when we get together to do these special episodes, First Downs and Friday Night Lights. But it's really just a fun way to get together and talk about the other dimensions,
Right,
of public education that often gets separated out. And then myths start spinning,
right.
And so we started talking a little bit about that a couple of weeks ago, Tim, about being a student athlete and about the well-roundedness of being part of an athletics program, not only at the high school level, but at the collegiate level, and the way it prepares young people for life. And of course, I'm biased, Tim, as a coach, a teacher, and a professor, now coach also. I couldn't give up. Those two things go together hand in hand. But Tim, we got a special guest with us today. Why don't you introduce him and let's dive into it?
Yeah. Well, check this out too for our guests too. We've got two intros here because I want to set the stage with this. Intro number one. All right, everybody ready for this one?
Yeah, we're ready.
He's a 3-time All-Ohio linebacker, Harvard football letterman, and captain of the 1985 team, setting records and earning AP All-American recognition. Football taught him the value of grit, teamwork, and resilience, shaping his leadership to transformative roles across multiple sectors. Welcome to Busted Pencils, Brent Wilkinson. All right, that's one intro. Got another intro, though, too, because here's the other. He graduated from Harvard College with honors in economics and earned his MBA from Harvard Business School. He's a powerhouse entrepreneur with 4 successful exits, including IBM's $2 billion acquisition of Turbonomic, where he took on the roles like Chief Strategy, Chief People, and Chief Information Officer. He's a transformation leader. Man, welcome to Busted Pencils, Brent Wilkinson. The question, Brent, which one are you?
None of the above. I'm a dumb jock. That's what you asked for.
I'll let you jump in with that line. Brent, welcome to Busted Pencils. How are you?
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate the invitation here.
Yeah.
Well, as Johnny said, we have our specials on Fridays. First downs, Friday nights, and we say the extracurriculars, the essentials. And we started with Friday night football, really leaning in on that. But we've been having these conversations about the role, and let's just say, we extracurriculars, but we're calling them essential curriculars here, how they play to that overall development towards the contributing member of society, not just the contributing athlete. And you, Brent, turned me on to a piece that came across in, I think it was Harvard Magazine. Why Ivy athletes score in careers. How does undergraduate participation in varsity sports enhance career success? This is by Jonathan Shaw, the November-December 2024 edition. And they ask a simple question. Ivy League athletics and the contribution of being an athlete, how does that fare later in life when we look at all of the other ways that you can be successful? And the research comes across, Brent, that, you know what? Well, maybe you dumb jocks might take a couple spots from other people. That in the end, though, you guys actually do better, earning better in leadership, all kinds of things. And they speculate that maybe it has something to do with the fact that all that grit and resilience we talked about in your bio, Brent, that you learned to develop during those 20 hours plus a week working as a student athlete. Your thoughts, Brent Wilkinson?
No, look, I appreciate it. And look, Tim, I have to come back to the first thing you said is they're essential curriculars. That's one of the things I love about Busted Pencils. You talk about this is about creating well-rounded members of society. Okay. And look, and Johnny, you coach, right? You coach
Absolutely.
between the ears.
Mhm.
All right. That's where it is. And then a lot of things happen between the ears. So look, the classroom is important and teaches us a great many number of things. But I think as Paul Gomper said in his piece, look, there's so many other things that we learn. We learn how to collaborate. We learn how to be vulnerable. We learn how to fail. We learn how to deal with those things that are resilient. And look, and athletics are not the sole venue for learning those things. But one of the things that we all know is athletics really is a gift to the young, really not the old. So you have a limited time to pick these things up. And so it's not only through athletics. Like I know a number of people that learn these lessons being part of stage teams and being part of clubs and things like that. But I think the thing that's unique about athletics is truly a competition. All right. And so you learn how to be vulnerable. You learn how to, hey, I'm getting my ass kicked here. What are we going to do? All right. You know, how my teammate's going to pick me up. Or I've never met an athlete that didn't in the middle of some strenuous workout wanted to quit.
Mhm.
All right. And if they didn't pull themselves up, it was usually somebody, or, you know, I'm sure we all have had people in our lives, you know, coaches put their arm around your shoulder and go, okay, look, you know, this is a short time. We're going to get through it. So there's so many lessons. And again, I have a heavy bias. I don't know what it's like to be a non-athlete. Well, actually, I do now, but back then, you know, I don't know what it's like not to go through that, but I love what you guys talk about, the essential curriculars. And it's not just athletics. And by the way, we don't take spots from people. What happens is Harvard, many other universities look for well-rounded people, just like it's well-rounded. I love it. You know, our civic responsibilities, not being athletic. It's not only being academic, it's being a lot of different roles. And you learn that through school, through the extracurriculars. So
Yeah, I'm
how's
so
that for a
glad.
warm up?
I love that, Brent, and I love that you also took away that little barb I threw out there that you guys take those places, because that is kind of this feeling that somebody's like, whether it's Harvard, whether it's Washington State, whether it's Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, where some other guy on Busted Pencils went to school. That's where all these things happen. I just don't to remember 608-557-8577, 608-557-8577. Just a quick reminder there, Jess. Thanks for reminding me. That's our mailbag number. You can drop in, leave us some comments and some thoughts. But Brent, thinking about that, the idea that what is it about athletes, though, in particular, that seem that there's this rub that we go, well, they're just an athlete. They must have got special treatment to get where they are. I love this research because the research really points out here and saying, that's not true. But where does this myth come from that athletes get better treatment, get better results, and the sense of, if they weren't playing football, they would have never been at this college. They would have never been here. Where's that come from?
I think it's a natural assumption. I think that especially some athletics, and it's raw. There are people that boxing clubs and so on like that, and so it's really easy to assume. Okay, there's really not much that is to it from an academic or intellectual standpoint, and I can see where they get that draw those conclusions. To your question on the preferential treatment, look, there are big time football programs at the college level where the student athletes are treated extraordinarily, but they're almost rock stars. You see that with the NIL going on now, right? So I can see where there's a bit of that celebrity, but one of the things that you learn, and I learned it actually, believe it or not, in eighth grade. The eighth grade English teacher, there was a poem by A.E. Housman on an athlete dying young. Look, that glory does not last.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you got to think about what goes on after. So is there preferential treatment? I think to a degree. And I think a lot of people, and look, the whole college and high school experience, I remember Friday nights, boy, the whole town came out.
Yeah.
Right. And talk about, it's a point of civic participation, and that people raised money, and there was a pageantry, and so you feel special. But the same thing happens, with plays, high school plays, debates, and things like that. So I think that when you think about it, I can understand where you get some of that attention, but it's fleeting, and you get a lot of athletes that do live in the past and so on. Most of them that I know, though, they go, okay, let me take in those lessons that I learned. How do you set a big goal, break it into smaller pieces? How do I realize that one person's not an island? That if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go as a team. So all those things, Tim, I think that I can understand where people might draw the conclusions, but I think it's shallow thinking.
Shallow. Johnny Lupinacci.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Brent's response, his contribution to this myth busting here that, just because we have big cases like the NIL, especially, and it has brought so many, especially college athletes into the forefront of, they're earning money while they're still technically amateur athletes, and they're also student athletes. It doesn't take away from that requirement that they're student athletes. And I love that Brent brought it up, Tim, and you teased it a bit. There's this myth out there that that athletes across all the sports are celebrated for their athletic ability only. And that's just not the case. Every single college athlete has to be admitted into that college, and those admission standards don't change for those students, even if they're on full scholarship or anything. It's considered, like we call them extracurriculars, our essentials. It's considered a well-roundedness to their college application and that they're academically already eligible, right, to be considered for admission into these great schools. And so it's really important to remember that student athletes are students first. Even the ones making millions of dollars in the NIL have a requirement to be students first. They happen to have a really great, close to full-time job that has some accommodations for their student requirements, but they have to meet those student requirements. And believe me, especially if we take football, for example, and we look at the work that those young athletes are putting in and day out, and the regiment that they're on, and the leadership and the roles they're in to have a quality program. And that's at any school, high school or college, right? There's a lot of work. It is not a short, easy work week. It is not a life of partying or anything like that. It is school work. And what I mean by work is that time in as an athlete, any sport, they're working out, they're taking care of their health, they're getting their rest, they're going to class, rinse, repeat over and over again. And they are really on a grind. And I'm not saying that other college students aren't, but it's really important to recognize that the red carpet isn't necessarily rolled out. And then there's these 4 years of a life of luxury, or even 2 years if they go into the professional realm early or anything. They are working really hard. And so I love that we're celebrating that well-roundedness as early as we can. And we say, all of us as coaches, we've been there, and as athletes, we've heard this too. You're preparing for life. Right? I like that Brent says, like, sports help give us that opportunity to experience vulnerability, to experience loss, to have adversity, to have to turn towards others, to learn to depend on one another, establish trust, and work hard. I mean, those are core democratic values. So we're learning and practicing them, and not saying that everything's necessarily a competition, but being a great member of your community, you benefit when you've been part of a team. Even if it's an individual sport, you've worked out with other athletes, you've collaborated, you've had adversity, you've pushed really hard and learned from, loss and gain. Those are huge life skills. So obviously I'm biased, Tim, my background, but I really love these programs so much. And I love myth busting because I didn't realize that it was still prominent out there. People would think like, oh, well, someone playing for Harvard football took a space from a 4.0 student who's trying to get in. It's like, hold on, that's absolutely not true at any school. Any school in our community, they're not taking somebody's spots. They're qualified first and foremost as a student. And then they have this well-roundedness, these leadership skills, and these extra things that, like Brent said, you can gain as part of the debate team. You can gain as part of forensics. There are so many ways that what we, here at Busted Pencils call essentials, and then in broader discourses are called extracurriculars. But those programs that really round out, the 3 R's that we're learning in classrooms. So I love this conversation. Appreciate Brent being here, and always love busting a myth.
Man, Brent, Johnny laying it on thick for you, man.
Wow, Johnny, that was really well said. And I think as you're talking, discipline is one of the things also. To be a good member of society, you have to have discipline. You talk to athletes now, you talk to people who used to be athletes, many times we were actually more disciplined and better stewards of our time and our focus, quite frankly, when we were in season. And still, there was always the off-season training, but when you're in season, you have to be more disciplined. You can't push stuff off to tomorrow as well. And I think that there are so many lessons to be learned here. And I do appreciate you leading with it. We're students first. And I think it's not thinking very deeply if you think that we're taking other people's spots. Look, is there many other opportunities that we could have done where our spot, what we thought, was taken by somebody else? It's failure, man. And you go, okay, so that door shuts. What am I going to do? Okay, you cry about it, you move on. So
Mm.
look, I love what you guys are saying. I love that you also encourage the well-roundedness, and that holds true. It's not just academics. Academics are important. That's an important piece of it. That's just one dimension.
I'd like to just back to the research here to kind of lay this out. The findings it's over 400,000 different athletes that they looked at here, though, too. And the conclusion is that again, taking away the myth that you take away spots from others, but the reality is that having some connection to sports, that there is a contributing factor that seems to have some prediction on later in life successes, whether they be financial, whether they be leadership, you name it. And so this idea that I've even heard people saying, "Hey, school would be great if we just got rid of all of that extra nonsense." And you're like going, what? Wait. And here it is right away, deep, really rich study that says, no, actually, student athletes tend to contribute more, do more, spend more time with others. I mean, and kind of putting it out there, not even a myth. The fact is that it's a good thing to be a part of an extracurricular activity when you're in schools, because it does prepare you for adversity, for failure, for working together, for understanding all of those things. Even some of the things that you're learning in class, you find out that they are sometimes applicable when you're playing in the field. How that relates, Brent, I see a little agreement on that.
Absolutely. Look, Tim, it's human nature. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Sports allows us that to happen. Whether you're on the field, you're on the sidelines, you're in the stands, whether you're in the gym helping people out, there's a number of ways people are part, and you achieve things. When I look back on my career, and Johnny, I'm sure you see this both from personal experience and Tim from personal experience, and in athletes that is when you're part of something bigger, it enriches your life. And being part of something bigger isn't unidimensional. It's not only academic, it's not only athletic, it's not only these other extracurriculars. It's being well-rounded and learning how to contribute to something big. Sometimes, and also to be a leader, have to know how to be a good follower. All right. And you learn these lessons in school. You learn them through the extracurriculars. They're the essential curriculars. And so I think that it's an important part of life. And I think if you look at education or going to school as just unidimensional, you're cheapening the purpose. You're cheapening the experience.
Lupinacci.
Well, I couldn't say it any better than Brent here. And what you, Tim, and Brent are talking about is, absolutely just thinking about education more broadly as the essentials. And, and sports, sometimes get that myth of like they're separate from, but they're in every way part of it. And I like that Brent talked about it. It's just opportunity for even the folks involved who aren't doing the athletics. I mean, I think about managers, I think about, photographers, I think about in these days and age, the marketing that social media students are doing, that all like every merchandise, stores, concessions, it's just this real life application and also joy in our culture to come together and to experience that local economy, that strengthen our community. And Tim, we're big fans of it. We got Brent here. He's clearly a big fan of it, but that help contribute to the success of these students as they go out in life.
Right.
And they apply these skills into their different professions. So love having that conversation here today. It's always extra special. Brent, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brent, thank you so much for busting pencils. And you know what? You're not really a dumb jock. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, now for our moment of Zen. We all know individuals, most of them unsung, unrecognized, who have often, in the most modest ways, spoken out or acted on their beliefs for a more egalitarian, more just, peace loving society, to ward off alienation and gloom, It is only necessary to remember the unremembered heroes of the past and to look around us for the unnoticed heroes of the present.
Thanks for listening to Busted Pencils. Don't forget, you can tune in and listen to Busted Pencils across all the civic media stations this Saturday at 3 o'clock. If you missed that, you can download the podcast and listen. We got a great episode about college teaching, our AQ episode. We'll keep going with that. And don't forget, you better not be late Monday morning for homeroom. That's right, homeroom episode drops on Monday. Keep Busted Pencils.